Through his first two starts in AAA, the Mets' top pitching prospect Christian Scott has been turning heads. Could he be heading to the big leagues soon? We'll break it all down on today's show.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. From brake parts to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's guarantee fit is only available to U.S. customers. With the Mets rained out on Wednesday night, all eyes went to Syracuse, where Christian Scott was set to make his second start of the season, and he did not disappoint. He opens up the game. He gets 2 strikeouts and a perfect inning. Then he gets some run support. Luis Angel Acuna with a triple. Ben Gamble popped out. And then Mark Vientos came up. That's right. Mark Vientos came up. I was wrong, everybody. I came out yesterday and I had a hypothesis. I thought that Vientos was going to join the Mets. I laid out my case. Not happening. He's still in Syracuse, and he hit a 2-run homer. And that ended up being the runs that allowed Scott to get a victory in this start. But second inning comes around. He gives up a leadoff homer. He also walked a batter in that inning and gave up a single, but he struck out 3. And then from that point on, it was 9 up, 9 down through the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And of those 9 batters he faced, he struck out 6 of them. On the day, he had 10 strikeouts. He allowed just the 2 hits, the home run, the single. He walked 1. Only run that came in was on the homer. And now through 2 starts, he has 19 strikeouts. He's walked 1, 7 hits allowed. Now, he has given up some runs because he gave up 2 home runs in his first start and 1 in this one. The 2 home runs in the first start were on some hanging sliders, and then this was a fastball that he left over the heart of the plate that got hit out today. But with that said, I went through and I counted. Christian Scott has faced 32 batters so far in his first 2 starts. He struck out 19 of those batters. That's a strikeout rate of 59%. To put that in context, Edwin Diaz in 2022 had a strikeout rate of 50.2%, I believe. So Scott is striking out batters at a better clip. Granted, much, much smaller sample size. It's AAA. But this is dominance. Don't get it twisted. You'll see his ERA is, I think, 4 right now because it's 4 earned and 9 innings pitched. That's all well and good. When you're going up and you're striking out over half the batters you're facing, that shows a level of pitching that should definitely be getting the notice of the Mets front office right now. He looks great. And from watching this start, you're seeing complete 4-pitch arsenal. Last year when you watched Christian Scott, what jumped out was the fastball. I've been saying it on this show for feels like over a year now. And that has been that Christian Scott has a big league fastball. You throw that pitch up in the zone and guys just cannot catch it. It's nasty. And his fastball alone is good enough to go into a big league start right now and hang around and to be good. And we saw it in spring training when he pitched against the Marlins. Now, granted, the Marlins didn't have their best lineup, and their best lineup right now is still pretty bad. But it was still a lot of big league hitters that he made look foolish in that start. And now we're seeing him in AAA just overmatching people. And so, again, the fastball has always been there. Last year, you would see a changeup that flashed some potential, and a slider as well that had flashes, but overall pitches that were inconsistent. Now you're seeing more consistency. Now you're seeing a changeup that looks like a plus pitch and a slider and a sweeper combination because he's added this sweeper in there as well that gives him a 4-pitch mix where he's getting a ton of swing and miss on that breaking stuff. He's tunneling everything well. He's in a position right now where guys are very uncomfortable in the box against him. Now, is he going to hang some sliders and potentially get hurt? Yes, it's already happened so far. And I think that's the one thing that he can work on and iron out right now in the minor leagues. It's making sure that he never does leave those sliders or the sweepers over the heart of the plate. That's going to take some time, and that's clearly something that he can develop throughout the season in AAA if the Mets never need him. But if they need a starter, if you're getting to a point again where you need a spot starter or someone to fill in because whoever the next injury is happens to that rotation and someone's got to fill in for 2 weeks, it's going to get to a point if he goes out his next time in AAA and strikes out 8 and pitches 6 scoreless and builds out his stats more and overall, though, just looks dominant time in, time out at that level, the Mets might have to say, look, we're trying to win games, and this guy's going to help us win games. So, again, right now, I don't expect it. Jose Budo is going to get the next crack at this rotation, and he should. Had a great start in the big leagues this year, had a really good spring, and pitched well for the Mets when he was up last year. So Budo deserves this opportunity. But you look at Adrian Hauser right now, and I don't expect the Mets to pull the ripcord out from under Hauser 2 starts in. But if you ask me, for my honest opinion, if I had to give the ball to one pitcher for my life, is it Christian Scott or Adrian Hauser? There's no doubt about it. I'm handing that ball to Scott right now. He is a better pitcher than Adrian Hauser. Now, Adrian Hauser has the experience. Adrian Hauser does not have the roster flexibility. You got to stick him in the bullpen if he's not in your rotation, and he's less valuable there. So I understand keeping the rotation status quo for the rest of this month. But if another injury pops up or if somebody consistently doesn't perform, if Hauser makes 2 more starts this month and he gets banged around in both of them and you're losing games when he's on the mound, you might have to make the decision to make a change and go to the kid because he's got great stuff and he's very close to big league ready. And he's also the best pitching prospect this system has developed since that 2015 Mets rotation. I mean, since then, it's slim pickings, really. I mean, you're looking at David Peterson and Tyler McGill and not much else. I guess Budo is now another one, but this guy has the chance to be a good starter for a long time. And the last thing I'll say about it, how many innings does he have this year? He threw, I think, 87 and 2/3 last year, something like that. I know it was around 90. So are they going to jump him to 120 this year? And if they are, how many of those innings do you want to waste in the minor leagues? So we'll see what the Mets decide to do with Christian Scott. But on a night where the big league club was not on TV and people were looking for things to watch, there was a lot of people focusing in on Syracuse, and Scott did not disappoint. Now we're going to go through the rest of the minor league system since we got a day here with no Mets games to discuss. I'm going to break down all the different starts that we've seen at each level. So we'll get to that in just a minute. First, though, today's episode is brought to you by Policygenius. You never know what can happen in life. You always want to make sure you're prepared and your family is taken care of. That's why everyone should have life insurance. But sometimes finding the right policy is not easy. It can be really time consuming and just overwhelming. This is where Policygenius comes in. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace that will save you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius helps you compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. Policygenius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team, and they have no incentive to recommend one insurer over the other, so you can trust their guidance. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB. Today's episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience are what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, the roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, with all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers. So far this year, we haven't been able to go over much on the prospect front because the big league team always takes precedence. But since it was a day off, let's dive in and do a roundup of all the different top prospects in the system up to this point in the season. We'll start in AAA, which is sort of a roundup of prospects and also guys that could come up and help the Mets at some point. Mark Vientos hitting 306, 405 on base, 611 slug, 3 home runs, 2 doubles in 10 games. I believe he also has 10 strikeouts too. I didn't mark that on my notes, but I'm pretty sure I saw it was 10. For Vientos, he's at this stage where he's too good to be in AAA, and he might not be good enough to be in the big leagues. It's a tough place to be in. We'll see how that situation resolves itself throughout the year, when or if he gets time, if he's a player that just sits in AAA all year and maybe gets dealt as a sweetener on a trade package at the deadline. We'll see. Ben Gamel hitting really well for Syracuse, 346 average, 452 on base, 654 slug, 2 home runs, 2 doubles. Gamel, an MLB veteran who certainly represents some outfield depth for this team. He is outperforming Trace Thompson. I didn't mark Thompson's stats here, but I believe he was hitting below 100. So right now, Gamel, the Mets had an injury to their outfield, would probably be the guy that got added to the roster. Luis Angel Acuna has not had the best start. He's hitting 143 with a 182 on base and a 262 slug with 10 strikeouts in 10 games. Had the triple today, which was good. We'll see if he can get hot. This is his first taste of AAA, so you can expect a learning curve. Hopefully he figures it out. Remember, he's on the 40-man roster, but he's got to be performing if the Mets are actually going to call on him. So we'll see if he ends up doing better over the next couple weeks into May, and maybe that's when he really can start to turn a corner. Drew Gilbert is hurt with a hamstring right now. It's described as a mild hamstring strain. Hitting 240 on the year, 321 on base, 360 slug. I believe he got into 7 games before going down. He was running down to first base when he pulled that hammy. Joey Lucchesi has allowed 2 earned in his first 2 starts, has gone 9 innings. Now that we get to the rosters opening up here, once we get to April 12th, and all the guys that were optioned can finally get called back up, Lucchesi is definitely the 6th starter in this rotation right now. He's the first depth guy that would get called because he's on the 40 and he's got all the experience. So we'll see. I'm sure you'll see Lucchesi at some point, probably in May. I mean, it's just sort of a given considering how much pitchers go down, or you might need a second starter for a doubleheader. Stuff like that's going to come up. Nate Lavender, we talked a lot about him during spring training. Has not gotten off to the best start in Syracuse. 3 earned in 4 innings pitched. Has struck out 7, but 4 walks. So people wondering why he wasn't given one of these roster spots as the Mets added Daniel Nunez and now Tyler J. That's why he hasn't performed that well so far this year. Shintaro Fujinami is in the minor leagues to get a handle on his control. He's only given up 1 run in 3 appearances, but he's walked 4 and he's hit 2 batters. So I think he's going to be down there for a little while longer at least. Mike Vassell made 2 starts, 6 earned, 5 1/3 innings pitched. Dom Hamill has made 1 start, allowed 5 and 2 2/3. I think he will start on Thursday night, I believe. I think he was following up Scott in the rotation. But it is interesting to note those two and compare them to Christian Scott because they're not even in the same league right now as far as the results that they're getting. It shows you the difference in the top prospect in the system, who's now clearly a top 5 prospect, or top pitching prospect in the system, top 5 prospect in the system overall, guy that's making top 100 lists, and guys that are at the back end of the top 10 for Vassell and in the 10 to 15 range for Dom Hamill. Moving over to Double-A. Just like AAA, where there's 3 starting pitchers to watch, same thing in Double-A. You got Joander Suarez, Tyler Stewart, and Blade Tidwell. Suarez had a good first start, 5 scoreless innings. He struck out 6. Tyler Stewart gave up 3 and 4 2/3. That was off of 9 hits. Didn't walk any, struck out 2. Blade Tidwell, 5 2/3, 1 unearned run, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks. So it would be cool to watch those guys throughout the season in Double-A. Jet Williams, the top prospect in the Mets system, has gotten off to a 5-for-21 start with 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, hitting 238, 304 on base, 429 slug, 2 stolen bases on 2 attempts, 2 doubles, and a triple. But it's early. It's 5 games. So we'll see how he continues to attack that level throughout this season, if he can get himself up to at least AAA this year, if not the show. Kevin Parada, 3 for 11 so far this year. Alex Ramirez, probably the biggest standout in AA. He has started this season 6 for 18 with a home run, a double, a triple, and 4 stolen bases. 4 for 4 on the stolen bases. He probably projects to be a 4th outfielder, but we'll see if he can keep hitting. Those numbers are great to start. I'm cautious on him because I was getting pretty hyped from what I saw, and from the limited at-bats we saw in spring and the videos that you can find in in Binghamton, and then the numbers that he's putting up. But I will tell you, at Just Baseball, our prospect expert and the co-founder of the company, R.M. Layton, is doing the Mets top 15 right now. And I'm going to have him on when that list comes out to break down how he views the Mets system. And I put him on to Alex Ramirez. I told him about how Ramirez this offseason worked in the Dominican Republic all offseason to shorten his swing. And the results have been there so far. So I asked Arm about it. I told him to do a video dive. He did. He saw a bunch of his at-bats so far to get a taste of what he's looking at. And I hope he's okay with me reading our text. But he said, so I said, he's off to such a fast start. What are you seeing? He said, actually, here it was. I had messaged him the other day. Completely random, but Alex Ramirez should be in your top 15. Worked all winter, and I gave him the whole spiel. He said, so now he responds to this a day later. This is probably after he watched who knows how much video on the guy. He said, I'm afraid to alert you that I'm still out. I said, damn, he's off to such a fast start. What are you seeing? He said, he's better, but I still think his swing is insanely long. A lot of wasted movement. That will disrupt timing. Has to cheat to get ahead or to get the head out. So he chases more. But he could put up some good AA numbers, arguably still top 15. So we'll see where he lands, and I'll have this conversation at length with Arm on the show at some point. But when Arm's not as in on a guy, it makes me pause because he's watching more video. He has more information. He just knows more about prospects than I do. So we'll see. Moving over to high A, Ryan Clifford is the guy to watch there. He is 2 for 18 on the season, 8 strikeouts in those 18 at-bats. We're a week in. Let's not overreact, but that's not the best start because strikeouts are definitely a big concern in Clifford's profile. He has hit a home run already. Just like we talk about a trio at AAA and a trio of starters in AA, there's a trio in high A as well. Brandon Sproat, Noel McLean, and Calvin Ziegler. Sproat had a very interesting start. 2 2/3 innings pitched, 1 hit allowed, 5 walks, 5 strikeouts, no runs allowed. Sproat, you may recall, was the Mets' first-round pick last year. It's really good stuff. So we'll see how he continues to develop as a starting pitcher. He was a reliever at times in college. So we'll see. We'll see how Sproat does. But that's a crazy line. 5 walks, 5 strikeouts, no runs. Noel McLean, two-way player who has not hit yet. I think he's more of a pitching prospect than a two-way guy, but he's going to get his opportunities to hit at some point this year. He went 3 1/3, 3 hits allowed, no earned runs, 2 batters that he hit, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. The guy that popped, though, in the first time through was Calvin Ziegler. 4 perfect innings, 9 strikeouts. So he faced 12. He struck out 9. Only needed 53 pitches to get through 4 innings. And Ziegler, really interesting prospect because he was a second-round pick, I believe. He's either a second pick or a comp level pick. But top 3 rounds, I believe it was second-round pick. In 2019, I think he was picked after Matt Allen. I think it was Allen, Ziegler, and then they I think Josh Wolf was in the mix too, who went in the Lindor trade. But regardless, Ziegler was highly touted then. The Mets loved him for the spin rates that they saw in his curveball. And he hasn't pitched much. He's been hurt. When he's been on the mound, he's been inconsistent. He's walked a lot of batters. So now you see him in the spring breakout game look fantastic. Here he is, his first start in high A, 4 perfect innings, 9 strikeouts. He's still only 21 years old because he might have been 17 when they drafted him. So, yeah, it's very interesting to see how Ziegler is going to progress here. He can find himself in AA quickly, and who knows? I mean, who knows how far he could climb, but he might really rewrite his narrative as a prospect this season and jump right back up into top 10 list. I had him in the top 10 heading into last year, and then he fell off my list entirely because he just didn't pitch much. Let's move down to low A, Port St. Lucie. Before the season, I told you that Cade Morris was the pitcher I was most interested in following. He was a 4th-round pick last year. 5 scoreless innings pitched in his St. Lucie debut for the season. 4 hits allowed, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. Yet it is Jonah Tong that had the best start. Tong was a 7th-round pick in 2022. He pitched 4 1/3 innings, allowed 2 hits, walked 2, struck out 11. So we'll see how he continues to progress throughout this year. I wanted to note that Max Kranick got a couple of outs in a St. Lucie game at some point. That was on April 7th. So he's maybe working his way back from, was it a hamstring that he pulled during spring training? He had a chance to make the team. No options left on Kranick. He's on the IL for the Mets. So just something to note. We'll see how that rehab goes for him. There's a lot of infielders to watch in St. Lucie. Jesus Baez, Colin Houck, and Marco Vargas in particular. Vargas has only played 1 game. He's not listed as hurt, but I got to imagine something's going on there. But again, 1 game, 1 for 4. Not much to talk about. Jesus Baez is 5 for 21, playing third base now, a former shortstop prospect, but Houck is going to be the shortstop. He's the 1st-round pick from last year. For Baez, again, 5 for 21, 238 average, 273 on base, 381 slug. Houck, 4 for 21, 190 average, 250 on base, 286 slug. Hard to take much from a week of play. But we will note that Ron Hernandez has gotten off to a very fast start. 4 for 11 with 5 walks. Remember, Hernandez came over in the David Robertson trade last year with Marco Vargas. Had a great run with the Mets. He was good with the Marlins, even better with the Mets last year. And part of his hallmark was drawing a lot of walks, getting on base a ton. He's getting on base at a 529 clip right now. So that on-base prowess is continuing. He's trying to improve as a defensive catcher, a guy that could be a backup catcher for Francisco Alvarez in a couple of years if he can keep this up. So good to see him get off to a fast start. And then one last St. Lucie Met to discuss, J.D. Martinez. Just funny to see his name mentioned in there. He's 1 for 8, 2 walks, no strikeouts. Scored a run at one point. But we'll see when he gets back into another St. Lucie game or where his rehab is it called? I guess now that there was a back injury, it is now a rehab assignment. His rehab / ramp up will take him next once that cortisone shot kicks in. But we still got a Mets Braves series to discuss a little bit. There was a rain out. I want to talk about what that did for the Mets rotation, where the roster sits, all that good stuff as we preview lies ahead with the day game today. We'll get to that in just a minute. First, though, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL, and baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots, home runs, slam dunks, and all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. Again, $150 in bonus bets guaranteed at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So the Mets and Braves were rained out on Wednesday. That game got postponed all the way to September 26th, which was probably pretty jarring. Like, what are the Mets doing here? What are the Braves? Like, why is this game getting postponed 5+ months from now? Here's the thing. At the end of the season, the Mets had a 2-game set in Atlanta against the Braves. They're going to have an off day on Monday, play Tuesday, Wednesday, have an off day on Thursday, and then head to Milwaukee for the final series of the season. So now that off day on Thursday goes away. It'll be a 3-game set against the Braves, which just sets up a devastating end to the year. I hate to be this way, but I am. I'm already looking ahead, and I shouldn't. We have no idea if the Mets are even going to be good this year. Are they even going to be in the mix? It could be completely irrelevant. But let's just imagine that they are one of those teams, like we saw last year with the Cubs, the Diamondbacks, the Marlins, sitting. The Reds were also in the mix too, sitting 3 or 4 games over 500 in the middle of September. And you close your season with a 4-game series, at home at least, against the Phillies. I believe, actually, if you want to go further back than that, it's 3 in Philly, I think. 3 at home against the Nationals, 4 against the Phillies. A day off. 3 in Atlanta, where you just know that's just their last series that they'll care. They'll probably have the division's sewn up, and that'll just be all right. Let's just knock the Mets out of the playoffs, and then we'll rest our final series. And then you have a series in Milwaukee against that team that destroyed you in the first series of the season. Don't love that for the New York Mets. I don't. But let's not get way too far ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about the current series. Mets are going to play one more against the Braves, so it's now turned into a 3-game set. This is the rubber match game, and the Mets have a pitching advantage. They don't have a lineup advantage, though, so I don't know if that really counts for anything, but Jose Quintana still going to go for the Mets. Alan Winans still going to go for the Braves. I was expecting to see Max Fried staying online. He was going to pitch on Thursday anyway against Luis Severino, but they're keeping their rotation status quo. They'd rather have Fried pitch against the Marlins because I guess they just don't care. Shows you how much they fear and respect the Mets, doesn't it? But yeah, Winans is still going to go. So the Mets got a good shot to win this series. We'll see what happens. Now, looking at the Mets rotation moving forward, they got, again, Quintana going. Sevy is pushed to Friday. Manaea will pitch on Saturday. And then you have a TBD, to be decided. And then Monday, they've already listed Hauser. So they could have pitched Hauser on Sunday, kept him on full rest. Instead, he'll get an extra day. And the assumption is Jose Butto will slide into that slot. And that's going to be a rotation moving forward. Okay, I think for the rest of this month, that's what you can expect because they have an off day next Thursday. They have an off day the following Thursday. So they don't need a 6th starter. Now, that's weather permitting. Crazy stuff can happen. Shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves. But I would imagine that that's going to be your rotation. Quintana, Severino, Manaea, Butto, Hauser. Now, the Mets made a roster move. They had to add somebody. They optioned Daniel Nunez down after he pitched those 2 innings on on Tuesday. And I had my theory about Mark Vientos. That didn't happen. They decided to go with another relief pitcher. They called up Tyler J, and they moved Kodai Senga to the 60 to accommodate J on the 40. Now, don't worry about Senga. I've been foreshadowing this for weeks now on the show. Ever since Senga went down, we got into the season, and the Mets needed 40-man spots that they could, put Senga on the 60, and that's probably a good timeline for him to return anyway. He's still not thrown off the mound yet, so that means he can come back May 27th. David Peterson can also come back May 27th, and there's part of me that believes that Peterson might just beat Senga. I still think there's a chance that happens because he's throwing. I don't know if he's thrown off the mound, but he's been in this process a little bit longer. Senga had the setback and is now catching up. Regardless, though, again, I think it was unlikely to expect Senga much before June at this stage anyway. So no reason to react to that. Tyler J is an interesting story. Anthony DiComo did a great job profiling him, so you could find that at MLB.com. A former first overall pick. I think he was 6th overall. Former first round pick. 6th overall by the Twins. I want to say that was 2015. Who was a starting pitcher. He had some health issues, ended up pitching in indie ball, and got noticed by the Mets and got signed and pitched with them last year and came into spring training and impressed. 5 scoreless innings in 4 appearances, 7 strikeouts, 1 walk. His 1 outing in Syracuse, he pitched 3 2/3, only needed 39 pitches to get 11 outs. That's pretty impressive. Allowed 4 hits, no runs, no walks, 2 strikeouts. So he's going to be in the bullpen for this game against the Braves. And with Butto not needed until Sunday, I'd imagine they could keep a 9-man bullpen for the first 2 games of the next series as well. And then you make the move. You would send down Jay and call up Butto, or conceivably he could stay and Sulser could go down. I was interested to find out that on Fangraphs, it says that Sulser has an option. So, he was signing a minor league deal, but I guess maybe in that contract they included it as a contract where he would have an option, or maybe that's based on, I guess, where he's at in his career service time wise. Regardless, that means that they now have a lot of pitchers with some optionality on this roster. You got Sulser, you got Nunez, you got Jay, who now just starts his service time, so he's got 3 option years, as does Nunez. You got Grant Hartwig, Josh Walker, Reed Garrett. So the Mets now have some guys that can move up and down and play with, especially once you get to April 12th, and everyone is free and clear from that first option, all the way back at the beginning of the season. Now, for Daniel Nunez, now that he got optioned down, it's now 15 days till we see him again. So that's how that works. You can option them up and down 5 times, but once they're optioned, there's a 15-day waiting period. Then you can call them back up. So you can call a guy up for a day, have a pitch, send them down. You just got to keep cycling those guys. So things will get a little bit easier for the Mets. I will also note that Sean Reed-Foley could come back now as well. We don't know how hurt he really was when he missed the opening day roster. So that's another thing that we could see. We could see Jay pitch in this one game, and then Sean Reed-Foley comes off the 15-day IL and takes his place. Same thing for Tyler McGill, but we would hear more about McGill making a rehab starts and ramping up if he was getting healthy and ready to go. With all that said, Mets got a big final game against the Braves today, 12:20, I believe is the start time. So I'll be breaking that down. I think we're actually going to go live. Myself and the host of Locked On Braves, Jake Mastriani. So that should be fun. I think we were thinking 3 Central Time, he said. So 4 Eastern Time. Should go live on YouTube. So you want to check that one out. I might even, depending on how that show goes, I might even do an additional show for Friday morning. So a lot coming ahead for you all to tune into. If you're listening on the audio side, follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. If you are watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to make a push to 9,000 subs. So appreciate all of you who subscribe. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, you can find a link in the episode description. You can follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, head over to Locked On Sports Today, the first ever 24/7 streaming channel that covers everything the world of sports with our local experts from each team and our league-wide experts from each league. For Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube.